Good afternoon. This is Pastor Mike along with Brad Carter, and you're listening to Voices from Home, a voice for the voiceless. Our program is talking about the homeless issues in Volusia County, and more specifically here in Daytona Beach. We talk about the homeless, how they're set upon and harassed, and definitely have a hard life. Wouldn't you agree, Brad?
I would agree. You are correct, sir.
You are correct, sir. Well, Brad and I have both formerly been homeless. We've had a real tough week here in Daytona Beach. We've had had a kind of a I wouldn't call it confrontational, but we don't seem to be moving the needle in with the mayor and city commission about providing a safe place to sleep for the homeless. Right now, if you're homeless in Daytona Beach and you want to find a place to sleep, your options are very, very limited, and you run the risk of getting arrested. So that's our main function right now. Our main issue is finding a safe place to sleep for the people that don't have a place to sleep, and we've had a tough time of it. Myself personally, I don't know if you heard the news, saw it in the newspaper. I was giving out water on Sunday, and a young man decided that he was tired of walking and jumped in my van and took off running with it, and I was able to get control back of the vehicle.
Did you dive on the hood?
No, I didn't dive on the hood. That would have made a great
great story.
That would have made great video too, but I didn't have video. Actually, I jumped in the van and
did you go feet first through the side?
No.
Window?
And you know what I thought about? I thought about Harrison Ford in Air Force One. Get off my plane. So I didn't really have a chance to say get out of my van.
I thought of Harrison Ford in Indiana Jones, where he takes the Jeep
right.
through the window and kicking the guy in the face.
I'm glad you're so flip about this, Brad. Okay, actually,
I'm happy you are right. I thought it was pretty.
I'm okay. Everybody was concerned. Everybody said, "I'm glad you're okay," and so on. But, I'm from Camden, New Jersey, and a lot of people, think that I'm this mild-mannered pastor on the street, and this guy wasn't getting away with my van. It just wasn't going to happen.
I don't think that anymore.
No. Actually, the word on the street is don't mess with Pastor Mike. So, anyway, I got through it. The young man is in the branch jail, a $25,000 bond. The state attorney's office called me this morning and asked me to make a statement. And I said, well, I looked up his rap sheet on Daytona mugshots. He doesn't have a lot of violent felonies and so on. I think he made a bad decision. So I don't want to see the guy do 5 years in prison. So I'm going to ask the judge to not be, really lenient, but I think, I think he needs to be punished, but I just don't think it's a violent carjacking where was premeditated and there was a gun involved or anything. It wasn't anything like that. But
was he homeless? I mean, is it for sure he was homeless?
Well, that's what they're reporting it as, but they always do that, And I don't think his lack of an address was germane to the story. I don't think that you should say homeless man does this or homeless man does that. I don't think that's good for the cause.
I kind of like that homeless man next to homeless shelter, which I don't know. Do we have a homeless shelter there on North Street?
No, we don't have a homeless shelter, but they're confusing the Homeless Assistance Center. But anyway, that's all I have to say about that. And we're going to move into our regular program. We have a guest today. We have Michael Cornell with Salvation Army. You want to say hello, Michael?
Well, hello. How you doing? Yeah,
you go by Mike or Michael?
Mr. Mike. Everybody seems to call me.
Oh, Mr. Mike. Okay, that's pretty much. I'm Pastor Mike. This is Mike from Salvation
Army. And I'm just Brad. I got to get a title.
No, he's just Brad. That's it. Okay, well, today. And this is a call-in program, by the way. Let's encourage our listeners to participate in the conversation by calling 523-1380, 523-1380. And one of the things that has been, has been promoted greatly is the focus on veterans' homelessness. And I think it's, a sad thing when, people that have served our country honorably, end up homeless, and there's just no help for them. So Mike's going to talk about available programs for veterans and also talk about homelessness in general. But first, I would like to invite you, Mike, to tell your story a little bit. So you want to go ahead and go into that?
I will do my best. First off, thanks for having me here. I did hear my name last week get mentioned as I was telling y'all if you're working this or you're anyone that wants to support or try to change, in any way with the state of homelessness, you got to take in all aspects. I told the wife that I will start going to the gym. So on Tuesdays, I go to the gym. And on the way, I always have been pretty faithful since you guys have been on, listening every Tuesday. Hey. And I'm very impressed. I've known Brad for a long time, and I know Pastor Mike more recently, but I've TJ Hooker actually came to mind when you guys were talking of all these things.
That's
but
what I was thinking of.
I'm a big Captain Kirk fan, so I'm glad you're okay. And again, you have to look at the way things are presented and where things are going and how things are. And if anything, there's an old story I used to tell. You never know what's good or bad. What we might think at that particular point in time is bad. In the overall long, reaching things of life, we really don't know. And that sort of was my story. Currently, I'm work for Salvation Army, and I've been there since last November. I'm the program coordinator for something called Supportive Services for Veteran Families. It's a very well-funded, very well-known commitment since 2007, basically in 2008 when President Obama got on there. They said, you know what, there is a disgrace, like you mentioned. You for whatever reason, you've decided to serve your country with honor, distinction, duty, all the senses. Maybe you just wanted to go in and get your GI Bill. Maybe you just wanted to get out of some small slow cala type town, but you served your country and you did the best that you can. And to be able to live in a country where we have these freedoms and all these things that we're supposed to be able to do, and you do everything you can for this country, and then you get back, and for whatever reason, you start to believe that the country turned its back on you.
Mike, you were a homeless veteran too, weren't you?
I was a homeless veteran, correct. I currently, as I said, I'm the program coordinator for that. Prior to this, I worked for the Volusia Flagler County Coalition for the Homeless. I was the one they actually didn't dislike that much when I was there. I was the community engagement director. And prior to that, I worked for the National Coalition for the Homeless, under Michael Stoops, actually, who recently had a stroke, so my prayers go out for him. 2007 is when I came to this area. That's how long I've been here. And
were you homeless in this area?
I was never physically homeless in this area. Basically, what happened is I am a highly decorated combat wounded veteran. Went up in the air one day and someone didn't like it and blew my helicopter right out of the sky. And had all the accolades, all the medals, all this other stuff like that. And 14 months later, I spent my first night in the woods. I'm a straight up drunk. I go around, I speak, people look at me, they go, ooh, look who you are, look at all your degrees and everything, but I'm a garden variety drunk. And one day at a time, I've been blessed not to have a drink since October 29th, 2007. I lived out there 14 years. I was a liar, a thief, a con man, a manipulator. I've been there, done that. I do not in any way whitewash the type of individual that I was.
But you can really relate.
Hold on. Me too.
There you go.
You could really relate to the homeless veterans, out there, that are out there today.
And I think that's what, and I don't disparage anyone that necessarily has not served their country, but they're trying to serve the veterans. But I'm telling you, when I was out there, I didn't want nothing to do with no one. If you weren't you were in my life. If you were a drug addict, a drunk, if you had a way to, if I needed to get money, if I needed to do whatever I needed to do, I didn't want nothing to do with shelters, people, social service, nothing. I was straight up gone. I had no hope. Well, that hope turned into one day in Marion County, Florida, when I had an active crack addict and an active meth person told me I had to get out of their living quarters because I was sort of too low bottom for them. I had burnt every bridge. I had become a self-fulfilling prophecy. I had no self-respect, no duty, no honor. I had nothing and nowhere to go, and no one cared what I did. Well, that night ended on top of a bridge, and I stepped off. And I tell people that, and they say, no, there's no way. I took a step. I know I did. For whatever reason, I wake up, and I'm in the Marion County Jail. I'm in something affectionately called the butt naked room. Now, it's not as luxurious as it sounds. So here I am, and for 2 weeks, I detoxed on a cold cement floor. Mm-hmm. Every couple of days, I heard a knock on the door, and I'd look up, and I think I'm hallucinating. It's this little ugly woman, dressed like in a military thing, just looking at me, kind of glaring, and I just would roll over. I didn't care. So about 3-4 times in 2 weeks, she's knocking on this door. And finally, one day, I scream at her. I say, what do you want? She said, I want to save your life. I said, sure, go ahead. She opened the door. Her name was Virginia Baxter. I called her Dr. Baxter. And she said, if you'll let me, I'm here. If you'll let me, I will save your life. And I said, okay, I was willing. I had no other place to go. No other place to go. That was in late 2007. She knew about my background. They look up the thing. I'm in the jail, but they know who I am. They can look up the records. They understand medals and all that other stuff and stuff I went to. But she didn't care. I was just a person in need. A person in need who had nothing and no one in their life to believe in them, and she believed in me. She pulled me out of there. She got me up to a VA hospital in Gainesville, and then she said, you know, they have this place called Serenity House. And I said, Serenity, that's what I want. Now, I wasn't one of these, ooh, I'm sober, I'm going to be great, I'm going to, never drink again and never drug again, I'm going to be a wonderful person and go back to school. No, I had nothing. I had no place to go. And I said, sure. And that's the amazing thing about waiting for that miracle to happen, because you don't know. And it doesn't matter how you get there, you got there, and I got there.
Is that how you ended up in Daytona?
That's exactly how I ended up in Daytona. And this is how they did. They get me a bus ticket. And they say, now you're going to get this bus ticket to Daytona. You're going to get on the 60 bus, and you're going to stop. You're going to tell them you're going to go to Big John Drive. Now, tell me that isn't a come around, 360 from that. So there I come walking in there, and I had a little plastic baggie with a half a bar of soap and a black comb. And a will to say, you know what, let's see where this goes. Because when you've got nothing to lose.
Randy Croy, the director?
Randy Croy was the director at that time. And I'll tell you, this was in, again, late December of 2007. This is how I know little angels and little things, and I must have done something somewhere right because someone was looking out. Because at that exact time period, they were opening up a VA transitional house for chronically homeless veterans on the site out at the farm. And literally my graduation date was just several months after they opened it up. I graduated. They used to call me happy because I was always smiling, because the last thing I remember in my drunkenness was stepping off a bridge. I was here for a reason. I didn't know what that reason was. Well, it took a while. I went through rehab. I wasn't like a lot of guys. I didn't graduate and suddenly I can become a counselor or something like that. I was going day by day. But I'm the fourth person into this transitional house. It was a 16-bed facility, which, by the way, is currently sitting empty, along with an 80-bed facility at the farm. I'm just saying. So I get in there. I'm the fourth person. I wind up being the case manager. Then the VA comes along, and they say, we've got this new program. It's called HUD-VASH. And what we're going to do is we're going to take, it's kind of crazy, it's called Housing First, but we're going to take veterans who are chronically homeless or been there, and what we're going to do is we're going to give them a voucher, and we're going to put them in a house. We're going to give them intensive case management, and if they don't have to be dry, they don't have to be sober, they don't have to be mental health compliant, we're just going to put you in there. And we all laughed at them, and we said, there's just no way. So anyway, we all put in for it and everything like that. And believe it or not, and this is how I know someone was looking out for me, I was the very first recipient of the very first HUD-VASH voucher here, not only in Volusia, Flagler, but one of the very first in all of Central Florida. I was the guinea pig. I got a place down in DeLand off of Spring Garden. and I had a blow-up bed and a plastic plant, and I was happy as a clam. And the reason why is I was safe. I could sleep. I had keys to something I could legally open. I was valued. I had my name on a lease. I can't tell you the last time I signed something that wasn't sitting in front of a judge. But I mattered. It was my place. I owned it. I respected it. It was mine.
Did you have case management?
I did, and that's the only way that it worked, is the fact, and it was new, and it was so funny to see the people that I work with today, newly into the program. We were all just sort of making it up. We didn't know what to do. But one thing I knew is I didn't want to drink, and I didn't want to go back to the streets. So I wound up getting in myself, I got into the 12-step program, which was right down the street, and I said, oh my gosh, what am I going to do with all this free time? You would be amazed. Well, you two wouldn't. You understand. But the time you spend 2 hours sleep at night, running from the cops, running from getting, hit in the head, running, trying to get, for me personally, not everyone, but money for drinking and drugging and all those type of things. When all of a sudden you take that away, you've got this amazing amount of free time. And at the time, I didn't have enough money to have Netflix.
Did you ever get claustrophobic? I hear a lot of times.
Absolutely not.
Really? Because I hear a lot of times homeless people, when they get off the streets, they get so claustrophobic. And
I think what it is, what happens is that you are so used to that bubble, that bubble that you have around you of negativity, that when at first, sure, you're sleeping with one eye open, because you don't know. And then you realize, I have 2 locks on the door. I have a shower. I can walk around my apartment naked and I don't get arrested for it. I don't get a trespassing ticket. I don't get an open container. It's my house. Housing is healthcare. I didn't always have to go to the, it was an amazing thing. But I said, you know what? I got this free time. I got to fill it up. How do I fill it up? I'm going to try, I'm going to go back to school. Now, here I am in my mid-40s, and I always hear, oh, you go back to school and everything. All I did was trying to fill up some free time. Okay? Now, housing first, the way they did it for us, you didn't have to have a job, you didn't have to have an income and everything like that. But let's face it, without those things, it makes it difficult. But guess what? After 2 weeks and you're sitting, I'm bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, I'm getting sleep, I'm feeling better. I start making more rational, logical decisions, positive decisions about my life. And that's what I did. So when I went back to school, I didn't have this long, drawn-out plan. It was to fill a gap in my life, from a negative to a positive. So I go back to Daytona State, and I had some stuff from years ago, and I floated around, and so I go here to Daytona State. In 8 months, I get my AA degree. And then I laughed, and I said, well, what am I going to do now? Should I go for the bachelor's, whatever? Well, at the same time, there was a church down there that was had a cold weather shelter, and they had problems finding people who would sit there overnight. Well, I was in school, I had to study, it was perfect. So for 3 years, I did the cold weather shelter there on Howery at the Methodist Church. I got to understand the nature of these folks, and they understood me because I'd been there, I'd done that, and again, replace negative with positive. Go ahead.
Mike, this fascinating journey that you've been through, and I've had a similar journey, and we're talking about helping people that have substance abuse problems, addictions, alcoholism, and so on. Don't you think that the power of one person helping another who's experienced the same thing is just without parallel?
That's
isn't it?
Exactly in my particular 12-step programs. But if you look at anything in the world that has been successful, from parenting to AA to certain programs, through self-improvement and things like that. It's about one person who's been there, done that, helping the other person. It helps the new person because they don't know what they're doing. It helps the person that's already experienced, because part of being validated, you need value. And by helping someone else in that position, suddenly you're helping yourself because you're getting outside your sense of self.
Yeah, that's what I found when I started advocating. I had to come to terms of what issues I had that made myself homeless. And once I came to terms with that, I began to see the very same issues in the people that I was dealing with. It's just very, very similar.
The amazing thing that when we go through life, that old saying about pointing a finger at folks and looking at them, you know what? You got four sticking back at you. And anything I do in life, as of late, I haven't suddenly become this, inspired, God-fearing, Buddhist-loving, guy that knows all. But one thing I've definitely learned is whatever I do in life, I always say, what part have I played? What have I done that I can control internally and turn that around? You can't always, look at someone else. I always say that's their karma. But if I've contributed to something that's been negative that hasn't done it, that's what I look at. And I think that when you're helping someone, you can say, you know what? I made those mistakes. I've messed, I've understood exactly, and I've made those. Let me show you what I did to get out of there. And I think the power of a story of one person to one person can move a mountain more than anything.
You know what I think? I think we found out why you didn't fall off that bridge. You were in the perfect job, in the perfect place, at exactly the right time.
And I say this, and I don't want to go all negative in the middle of the positive. When I get that apartment, and when I started going and I got that first degree, and I opted, I wound up going on to UCF. I got a bachelor's in psychology. I put in for graduate school, and I laughed at myself because if you guys saw my past, you would have,
Hey, an 8-month AA, you must have been a madman.
I was. It was amazing, and so I wrote this big thing about my story, and they said, you know what, we're going to let you in graduate school. I got my master's of social work degree last August, and I just passed my national exam on June 20th for my licensure, and I'm telling you, if you knew, I was sleeping in the mud 8 years ago, and it's so amazing, this gift, and so I wanted to share that with Dr. Baxter. I wanted to go back after about 6 months because I had to go back and, sorry, Your Honor, I tried to jump off a bridge. Apparently they frown upon jumping off bridges, especially on federal land. But anyway, the long story short, I went to thank her and to say, not only did you save my life, you changed my life. And so I did. And I went back to Ocala, and I had to thank her at her gravestone.
Well, now, Mike, the work that you're doing in Daytona Beach with Salvation Army, and you have veterans that come into your office and go through the process. Do you have any particular success stories that you're that you're
why don't we
proud
back up a little bit and find out exactly what is the HUD-VASH program?
Okay. If I could just finish with the gravestone thing.
Okay.
This kind of bears into how I think that we can help folks one at a time. This woman had been battling ovarian cancer. And on the very day she pulled me out of there, on the very day she got told, terminal hospice, you're not going to survive, she came knocking on that little plastic door. That little plastic window in front of there. She took out of her sense of self and came to me and said, I'm going to save your life. And I got down on my knees at that time and I said, I will spend every single day for the rest of my life trying to give back this gift that you gave me. And I have done that every single day. I don't do it perfect, but I honestly believe, like you say, that perfect job. I think there were angels put in the way. I think there was things put that somehow, that if I can live my life humble and given my sense of self and give that up and help others, for example, that person, that is why I am here. And that is why I am no longer stepping off bridges. I'm building bridges to get people to be where I was to where I am today. Now, HUD-VASH, just to go real quick, to explain HUD-VASH real quick.
Yeah, take your time. We got an hour.
This is the VA, so I will talk very slowly if you've ever waited for a VA appointment.
Oh,
but essentially what it is that you HUD-VASH is a collaboration between basically the two major funders of any homeless housing program financed by a governmental agency in this country is HUD and the Veterans Administration. So in a collaboration with those two, everyone's heard of Section 8 apartments. Now, I had heard of Section 8 apartments. All I think of is, the ghetto and the worst apartments and all this other stuff. That's what I always thought Section 8 was, having no experience at this. The Section 8 vouchers are actually distributed by local housing authorities. They're all over the country. We have Daytona Beach here. There's about 7 housing authorities here. DeLand, Daytona Beach are the 2 biggest ones that we know of. So they actually distribute the actual voucher. And what that does is basically the VA is your cosigner. And they tell Section 8, they say, hey, we're your cosigner, we'll do that. We believe this veteran is deserving of this voucher if you have one. They go through all the various steps, and let's say they're given a housing appointment. They say, yes, here's your HUD-VASH voucher. You are eligible. Now, what that entails is, of course, there's income-restricted apartments, but it's scattered site. The worst thing I think you can do housing-wise, now we're talking permanent supportive housing-wise, I believe, is to have a building that's where all the Section 8 people live. Because what it does, it demonizes and it separates and it segregates. So what they do is it's scattered site. In other words, there's apartments everywhere. My apartment, it was Lexington Club Apartments. It was off of 15A, and it was beautiful. It was a gated community. It was a 55 and older community, but they gave me an exception because, again, I was the guinea pig. They gave me an exception, right? You have no idea what the guy pushing 50 walks around, he keeps getting called kid. I loved it, right? So that's what HUD-VASH does. Now, HUD-VASH offers individual case management for their clientele for, let's say, they have probably maybe 40 total on their caseload. They may have active about 15, 20 clients. And what each case manager will do is they will work with them in finding apartments. Once they get in, that's where the real case management starts. They don't do it as well as I believe Salvation and the Army and our program does, just because we've learned from a little bit more experience. We have more flexibility. The Housing First does not at all work unless you have intensive case management, peer support, volunteers in the community doing all this, and I can explain some of that later. But HUD-VASH, once they get them in there, they can have that voucher for life. And basically the big draw for this is they can only take 30% top end of a veteran's income. Now, the way they're supposed to do is housing first. That means no barriers, okay? I've had to do some explaining to some of our local VA folks exactly what that is. My thesis is in rapid rehousing, permanent supportive housing. Homelessness is my thing. But it's difficult when you have someone that does not have those resources. So most of the folks that they had wind up having some sort of income, but they don't have to take them. They initially start off with chronically homeless, which is a year straight on the street, or 4 episodes in 3 years that total a year. Then sometimes they'll relax that depending on how many vouchers they have. They may say you don't have to be chronic. Their big emphasis on families. I don't think anybody disparages anybody for making exceptions for a baby out there. We had one today, a couple of 6 kids out in a van. Yes, we're going to help them. We're Salvation Army. That's what we do. I don't have to make a call. So basically HUD-VASH does that. Now, HUD-VASH itself, though it's a veterans program, falls under Healthcare for the Homeless out of Orlando. It's a major program. They do not have the ability to write check one. Now, when I got my HUD-VASH voucher in 2008, they didn't have SSVF. I had to go and hustle up that blow-up bed and plastic plant, which I still have, by the way. It's a reminder. I will never go back. Or when I don't do the dishes or take out the trash, then she reminds me. Remember that plastic blow-up bed there?
Mike, let me stop you for just a second. I want you to continue with, what you're relating to. But we have listeners out there. You're listening to Pastor Mike and Brad Carter, Voices from Home, a voice from the Voiceless. This is a call-in program. You're invited to call 523 1380, 523 1380. If you're a veteran or you have a loved one who's a veteran and you want to ask questions about what services are available for homeless veterans or people that are in risk of becoming homeless, now's the time. Our special guest, Mike Cornell with Salvation Army, is here to elaborate on the process and how veterans can get help. Go ahead, Mike.
Alrighty, back to me. Believe it or not, I do like to talk. So I start getting passionate, and we had to
Good,
put
good.
it.
Go
Yeah,
right-
let
go
me
right
tell you, you
ahead.
want to know about passion? We had a SSVF audit, a phone audit the other day, and all they could talk about was this passion that I have. Can you imagine being passionate about reports and release of information forms and everything? It's cool, man, because you see the change. You actually see it every single day. Not that you're affecting someone every single day. So if I have to create a release of information form, if that's the worst part of my day, I will be passionate about it. So that's where HUD-VASH comes in. So that's their program. They have a lot of eligibility criteria, 2 years straight, and they have to be honorable to be in their program. They are not.
So you have to have been in the service for 2 years straight
for their program.
with an honorable discharge.
Correct, for their program. To be able to be in HUD-VASH 2 years straight, honorable discharge, and eligible for VA services. And what that means is that you can't be making, $60,000 a year and having, insurance and all that other stuff, and then say, okay, now put me in homeless housing. These type of things. They won't do that. This is geared towards, again, homeless, but lower economic, socioeconomic folks too. Because anybody that knows anything about homeless, I'm a believer in you start with the hardest, and that's what a lot of other folks sort of believe the direct opposite. But those are the ones that are out there going to die. Those are the ones that don't come to your feet up necessarily, don't come into they're not sitting across your desk. These are the guys out in the woods that want nothing to do with nothing. They just want to be left alone. They want to get their stuff. That's who I like to go after. And those are hard, and that takes a lot of time. In places like the VA bureaucracy, they don't have that. So they do have certain criteria. Now, what we do through Salvation Army, and I can discuss a little bit more about the funding situation, is we help them financially. We will help their veterans. We can pay their initial move-in costs. Anything from security deposit, electric deposit, utility deposit. I can get them bus passes, 31-day bus passes. Again, through eligibility criteria with their clients. They do all of the footwork. Their HUD-VASH managers make all their copies, do all the stuff, take them to their appointments, things like that. So we support them financially. Now, we get them in the door for them. And then with their Section 8 vouchers, the way HUD works, let's say they don't have income, or let's say they lose a job or something, HUD has to pick up that tab. So the 70-30 split will get picked up where the veteran doesn't have to pay if that loses.
Are there any rules that they have to follow when they're in the program?
With HUD-VASH, yes. And again, this is separating, I'm discussing HUD-VASH and the VA's program from mine. Mine are, it's a whole different market.
Oh, you have a different...
Yes, and that's what I was going to explain, because the way you're doing
I'm
your
getting a little
questions.
confused here
I know,
now.
but see, that's why I was letting you ask the questions, because I
Right.
understood the confusion. Because there's a confusion out there. They don't understand, because we had my outreach guy get yelled at today because the VA doesn't do anything for people. And he had to take it and smile and say, I don't work for the VA, but I understand. So that's the HUD-VASH program. They have very limited number of vouchers. They have the folks that are vouchered. They help with homeless prevention. That they do the case management and everything like that. But they just cannot write the checks. We write the checks for them. Now, let's go to SSVF. Again, just a history of that. When Obama and everybody kicked off and everything like that, they said when I was the first HUD-VASH guy, we didn't have SSVF. Amazingly, not many of us made it beyond the first year. Statistically, with Housing First, it's good. It's 85, 90 if you have the apparatus in place. Most of the times people don't. And that's what ruins it. So they didn't have these things, so SSVF came into being about 4 years ago. So what it is that it's a Veterans Administration series of grants, and they got so smart that the VA does not give the SSVF check writing grant money to local VAs. They actually give it out to other folks, because that's the fox watching the hen house. Mm-hmm. So what they did is they go around the country and they said, we're going to give certain municipalities that have a certain amount of need based on a various type things. We can go to methodology later. And we're going to go across the country, and we're going to give out these series of what's called Priority 2 grants. They were approximately $440,000 or so, all across the country. And this was from probably when it really started kicking in, 2010, somewhere around there, 2011. And they were about 2-year renewable grants. Well, the Salvation Army here in Volusia County was fortunate and fortunate enough to have not only great grant writers, but also the staff and people in place that they felt they would be able to not only service the community, but that we had a real need in the community. That's one thing about grants and funding. You have to show how many people you're going to help, what you're going to do with the money. Everything has to be documented. And then you got to turn around and say, do you have a need? Okay? And as all of you know, the need and gaps, you can take it from anywhere. We all know we got an issue. So what they said was, Salvation Army, here you go, let's see what you can do. Well, they took that money, and from my experience, they did it very well. Everyone serviced, they hit all their numbers, people got helped. Really turned around the lives of a lot of folks. Not only supported HUD-VASH, but the amazing thing about these grants that I'm going to tell you about starting October 1st is with the success of the 440, they kept getting it. Salvation Army here became a mentor. And what that means is we've actually mentored other communities on how to take this VA money and get homeless vets off the street and keep them off the street. So they had a breakdown. It was about 60% permanent supportive rapid rehousing. Take a cat off the street from the woods, put him in an apartment. Permanent supportive housing takes about 2 years. I mean, in all honesty, to really work successfully, true numbers.
Until you can document results.
The whole point is, and what point is it if you can't take someone to self-sustainability? That's what it's supposed to be. That's what it is supposed to be. Not an addiction to social service, not a Cadillac program. It's to change not only someone's lives, but they can become like me, that I can give back. So that's the overall cause of this, and Salvation Army did it very well.
So you work with them to help them get a job in that 2-year period?
Absolutely. Now, I only came on board, as you know, this past fall. And what it is that they made a proclamation that by the point in time count of next January, so throughout December 31st, 2015, that was the day that chronically homeless veterans and veterans homelessness in general across the country will be gone. They call it functional zero. Now, horrible term. Functional zero, they look for a number. It's not a number. It just means we're going to get to a place to where we have every veteran we can off the street in housing. Not in a hotel, in permanent supportive housing. The rest for the community such as ours that has an influx of people, you just have to have the apparatus in place to be able to say, within 48 hours, I'll get you off the street. Within 3 weeks, I'll put you in an apartment. And let me tell you, we are doing it.
I have
We're doing
seen it.
Yeah, you've seen it. And we'll talk about Stevie here in a little bit. But
not just Stevie, I've seen it again and again and again.
And so what they said was, we're doing good. But country, we're not doing that good. We're coming down to it where we still have 50,000 veterans out there. So what we're going to do, we're going to pick 26 of the best in this entire nation, 26 areas, and we're going to give them an additional $3 million for 3 years. Salvation Army was one of those.
In Volusia County?
Salvation Army in Volusia, Flagler was one of the 26 across the nation that got this $3 million grant.
I could see it. I see it, I can over and over again, homeless vets just getting off the streets.
They just disappear.
Like, you never see them again. What happened to them? Exactly.
And what's amazing is when it came on board, okay, we had a wonderful program coordinator that was here. We had a wonderful staff. We are an LPGA. One of the first things I said is, what the heck are we doing on LPGA? This is, we're helping the homeless. They don't have to walk a half a mile. And the powers that be saw fit. And of course, now we're on North Street. But did a wonderful job. But what we did is, because we are Volusia and Flagler, we've expanded. We now have an office that opens, I believe, the 31st of this month up in Flagler. Now, I've been working with Flagler County for about 3 years because with my work with the Volusia Flagler, both with the community engagement and outreach coordination with the continuum of care. So we sort of knew how many people up there, and you guys know that I coordinated the point in time count the best I could do. So knowing that, so what we did is created what I call strike force teams. So the way you do it is you have to have the list. You have to know who the homeless are. You have to try to figure out a way to document who they are, where they are, patterns, and pictures. Do you know the people? So my thing is you got to know them by name. So what we did is, and I came on board, like I said, and I'm the program coordinator in Volusia, coordinating the $3 million one, as well as the 400 renewal grant that we have both here in Volusia and Flagler. So we created these strike force teams. And how did I do it? I have something I call battle buddies. And let me tell you, my battle buddies thing, and I'm not this is a Salvation Army thing, but let me tell you, they dig this. Not only the people that we're helping, I'm talking, we went to some Atlanta conference. I hate these foo-foo meetings, but you have to go. SSVF says you got to go to these things. So sometimes you got to go to foo-foo meetings, which I love. However, one thing I dig is when you actually get to the people that are in the same program. What do you do good? What do you do good? What do you do good? That's what a meeting should be. Instead of a meeting to discuss a meeting, to talk about this, and then what do you do good? Did it work today? Yes. So the battle buddy thing, what it is that, again, vet helping vet. When I helped Mr. Ortiz, when I helped my first guy, I said, here's what I want you to do. Can you do me a favor? My outreach guy really doesn't know what he's doing. You know, you're driving around in this van. He's horrible. Can you ride around with him when we go look for homeless people? Well, guess what? He ran around with them, right? First guy we picked up, they start talking. They start bonding.
Okay, we've got a caller. Let's go ahead. Hello, you're on the air.
Yes, I am. I'm not in charge of the shelter beds. These guys would probably know more about me. I'll tell you that. I can always tell you there's never enough.
Yeah.
18 to 20, I believe.
18
I think
to
there's
20.
actually only 10
Yeah.
actual beds for overnight guests.
I'll tell you, I went, and it was my fault. I worked there, I'm kind of busy, and helping getting homeless. But what I did is I actually went, and Tony Diobel, our director of social services, was amazing. He took me through the whole place, and I looked, and I seen, and it's so funny that, yes, everyone knows we need more, and everybody knows the various programs, and I can go into coulda, woulda, shoulda, and who said this, and who signs this, who doesn't do that. We all know we need more. But you know what? And I always try, again, I always try to look for the positives, because that's really helped me. There is no positive, but when you look at it, is in we all know we need more. Okay, but what do we need today? What do we need today? So by helping someone today, I think there's like 20.
I think there's, I don't want to correct you, but I think there's only 10 overnight beds for single homeless people to stay overnight. There are 6 female beds, so maybe there are 16
I think
total.
When I went there,
It's under 20. Okay.
Yeah, I think it was like 18.
Let the caller
or
ask
something,
his question there.
Oh, correct. Oh, I heard Brad talking about that last week. Yeah.
No, I wasn't talking about that.
No, I heard you mention it about the DOC programs and the people that pay and everything like that.
Yeah, there used to be a lot more shelter beds, but they have moved in other programs to the Salvation
And the
Army.
DOC pays
takes
Salvation
up the-
Army for those beds.
Oh yeah, just like like HUM's rapid rehousing program. Somebody pays for that. Their shelter program. Someone pays for that. Every time you have an institution or whatever where there's a program. But I did go see it, and what it is, it's like a 3-phase thing or something. And so what they do is, the DOC calls and they say, who can we go to? Because we've got these guys, they need help. They need to get out. And so they call places, HUM, for example, or they'll call some of our faith-based communities. They'll try to get everybody, like, Father Phil, what do we do? Or Faith, or Lisa Hamilton.
How can we get more beds, Mike, over at Belleau Road?
Well, I'll tell you what, we were talking about this today. I think you know, you hear cities, you hear things like that. What people can do, what people can't do.
What can Salvation Army do?
I will tell you what. No,
go ahead.
I'm letting you know.
Let the caller.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh no, those
No.
are 20 beds. They have 20 overnight beds total. At $10 a night though.
Right. And no. What it is that
they have vouchers from
there's
DOC,
several programs, and I think Salvation Army probably is one of the few in this county that actually have these programs. They do have a DOC program. They have what's called the Streets Team, which is you see the guys in the green shirts cleaning up, and that was a deal with the city. Can we have some beds so you don't yell at us, you know, in exchange? Because a lot of this stuff is designated by cities. We all know this. We all know they say that you can't have this many beds, you can't do this many beds.
Go.
Mm. Yeah, I again, without having, and I would really like to go back to the veteran thing, but without having the knowledge of that, I will tell you this: if we could get the community, the churches, all these folks, and we have that gym, we all know we have that big gym over there, right? Gym. If the city said, if they give us permission, because right now they don't.
I know.
Right now, for example, we all know about what North Street is actually special use permit for, that's not being used for. These type of things. So it's all like that sort of thing. But if they were to open and churches would say, you know what, we'll give you volunteers. Can you guys get some beds to put in there? We have a kitchen in there. Would you guys be willing to do it? It's not a will. It's, yes, we will. Let's work together. Let's do it. You know, the thing about it's, you know, $10 and they charge. And it's a way to, the community needs to go. But I guarantee you that if we went right now and said, is there a way, city, for you to let us help even more, and open that by getting everyone together and saying, we'll give you some volunteers for overnight, we'll give you some cots, we'll give you like this, will you open up your place? Let's ask Hum to do it. Let's ask Father Phil. They got amazing amount of things. Let's ask them. Let's all as a community, for now, let's open the doors.
Well, we would go ahead.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Well, before we go back to the VA thing, let me drill down on that, Mike. I mean, I'm not.
And again, I am not the shelter person. I don't run the shelter.
All right. Well, what I would challenge you to do is go up the food chain a little bit and get Brad and I an appointment with Captain Stan, and let's put our heads together of how we can open up that gym.
It's Major Stan, but I challenge you, because when you go to the cities, ask them, will you give Salvation Army permission to open up Baloo Road?
I got a story about that. Remember when we met with the mayor? Yeah. And we mentioned opening up North Street because they had a special use permit. Yeah. Hey. Remember how his eyes bugged out of his head? I know. He said, "No way."
I mean, why do we have families on North Street?
Yeah, we should get him off of North Street because carjackings happen out over there.
I've heard of this, but TJ Hooker's there. So anyway, back real quick
back to what you do.
Yeah, that actually affects change.
I know, I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
No, that's okay.
But I did actually.
I knew it was going to.
I did actually because you're an employee of Salvation Army, and we.
But I don't work for Salvation Army.
Well,
I work for the veterans.
You work
for the
homeless.
Is there any way you could get tossed out of the HUD VASH program? Or your program, not your program.
Oh, I forgot to mention, and this is amazing. I'm the first guy, right? When I became self-sustainable, I turned my HUD VASH voucher in.
You turned it in?
And you know what? They didn't know what to do. Because we've addicted people to keeping this forever, because it makes it easier on the people and it makes it easier on case manager. I turned it back in and they didn't know. When I went to work, and I do take umbrage sometimes when people say, "Oh, you work for social services," or people that work in it. You know what? I will take the work that I do and the work that Dr. Baxter did. She knocked at that. She worked for a social service agency. And I'm not saying we're all great. I'm not saying we're all bad. But there's people that do work and that do change lives and save lives. My staff does it every day. I do it today. I housed 4 people today.
You know, Mike, I believe that, and I've been, I've been to your office, and I know that the work you do empirically from the people that I have known on the street that are no longer on the street, that have gotten into programs and have been successful in migrating from homelessness.
Some hard cases too.
Yeah, some
real
hard cases.
And again, and that's
so
what
my only thing is, I get upset a little bit about social service people, the professional homeless industry,
right.
right. That are all that making money on homelessness.
Well, and that's really,
We have a caller.
Oh, wonderful.
We've got a caller. Hello, you're on the air. Give me your first name, please.
What was the name again?
Adele.
Sorry. Adele. Hi, Adele. And it's Mr. Mike. That's fine. I'm confused as to. Is she?
I think she's. I
She's
think she's
asking
asking
about
that
the original mission of Salvation Army,
right.
the traditional mission. When I think of Salvation Army, I think about people lined up for that evening meal. I think of that open door policy where, give me your tired and your huddled masses and stuff from like the 1800s.
Yeah.
Okay, and how has Salvation Army gotten away from that mission, and especially in Daytona Beach, where we don't even see an evening meal being served.
Right,
okay,
right.
So,
I think the caller's also asking why you have to ask permission to open up the gymnasium, basically.
Well, why would any organization or faith-based or church or whatever, the Bible talks about laws. You have to follow laws. And one of the laws with the city, again, is you have to go through what the laws say. So again, I can't speak for Salvation Army in the 150 years, but I will tell you this, and I see it every single day. They are good people. We have a lot of services. We do the best that we can every single day. My staff, I'm telling you right now, my staff, you come to my staff, 3 of my staff came from people that came from wanting Salvation Army services that needed help through us. We helped them, and then I hired them. 5 of my staff are formerly homeless individuals. We are Salvation Army. We don't turn people away here. I've seen it every day. Now, I'm a guy, I am employed by Salvation Army. I was employed by the Homeless Coalition, but I work for that person on the street. I don't do it perfect. No one does it perfect. But I think that we spend so much time worrying about what people don't do and not enough about what we can do. And that's where yeah. Right. Well, I'll tell you, I don't think we have time to go through the whole thing, but I will tell you this. I believe in the community. We're too agency-centric. We're too social service centric. We need to work as a community. I invite you to come to North Street. I invite everyone, come to North Street, come to my office, and you stay there for half a day, and you tell me we're not affecting lives every day.
I want to say this, though, before we run out of time.
Yeah, we got
I
3
think the
minutes.
HUD-VASH program, or your program, which is different, I didn't know.
We have, let me tell you, just real quick so I can tell you what I can do.
All right,
I
let's
can
let
do
the
any
caller
veteran.
go. Thank you, Adele, for calling in. We'll
I can
pursue
do
this.
Unlike any veteran other than dishonorable. Bad conduct, send them to me. Medically discharged, send them to me. Other than honorable, send them to me. I have income limits. It's about $18,400 a year for a single person, and it's about $23,000 for a family, say of 4, and then it goes up from there. Okay, I've got all the income limits. I can give it to everybody. Okay,
So
you come in.
You can
Here's
fit
what
somebody
I can do.
into
I can
something.
fit somebody in. I can bring you in today if you qualify. I can take a family and rapidly rehouse them today. I can literally take them, put them in an apartment if I have the apartment. I can put them in a hotel for 45 days. I can put a single individual for 30 days. Today. We did it today. I have no barriers in my program. You can drink, you can drug, you can have mental health. You can be the one program I know of that values that single homeless male who's not diagnosed with anything, who doesn't necessarily is a criminal, none of this other stuff that we talk about, or substance abuse or mental health issues. I can take that person and change that person's life.
But the veterans.
Okay, let's
Veterans. So
okay,
let's
let
be
me
successful as we are.
Wow,
Take
you are
that
passionate,
and
Mike.
show HUD.
I'm trying to pay you a compliment, Mike.
Oh, yeah.
I think
For
you,
veterans.
I think you run the best program. in
Okay,
Volusia
Mike does
County.
it,
Go
and
on.
we do appreciate your passion. But in the last 2 minutes, Mike, let's talk about how a veteran or a loved one of a veteran can get in touch with you and make an appointment to come down and see about getting some services. Go ahead and tell that.
We also do homeless prevention. Okay, so if you're a veteran and you've got a light bill that's due, or you've got your rent due and going to get evicted, I can help you with that too. We have an outreach number. It's a Google Voice number through my outreach guys. It's area code 904-474-1667. You call that number, the Google Voice puts the text, you need help, you call them, I need help. Every Tuesday afternoon, it's walk-ins on North Street.
Say again. 904.
904-474-1667.
Thanks, Mike, for coming.
Absolutely.
Thanks for being our guest today. We're covered up with homeless issues, with homeless veterans issues today. Next week we'll have the architect, right? Bill Chapin, who's the architect for Volusia Safe Harbor. Everybody have a safe week. I'll try to take my keys when I go out and give water bottles, and we'll be here next week, Tuesdays at 6 p.m. right here on 1380 The Cat.